right, the last text that we are discussing this term is The Matrix, the 1999 film made by the Wachowskis, Lily and Lana Wachowski. This is, I think, a well-known film. It certainly was revolutionary in 1999. I don't think it has aged terribly well, but arguably neither has Metropolis or, some of these other things that we have viewed. And so I think it's, it is an interesting statement from the time period that we're talking about, which is the very end of the 20th century. The Matrix as a film is a representative of several, the collusion of several genres of literature or film. It is, for one, post-apocalyptic, right? The scenario here is that, at least once the main character Neo realizes that he is not actually living in 1999, he's living somewhere closer to 2199, although they don't know the exact year that it really is, and that the world has been destroyed by this competition between humans and AI machines. So it is post-apocalyptic in that sense. It is, of course, also dystopia. And moreover, like a lot of kind of popular media that is both post-apocalyptic and dystopic, it is also part of the subgenre of science fiction known as cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a subgenre. It was kind of pioneered by science fiction authors like Philip K. Dick and William Gibson. Books like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep or Neuromancer, Gibson's Neuromancer, were some of the first works of literature in this subgenre. More recently, figures like Neil Stephenson have, we might say, perfected it, right? And a lot of like video games and other things are also in kind of cyberpunk. It's called cyberpunk because it's a high-tech future, but at the same time, it's kind of the underbelly or the low life of that high-tech future, right? So you're not looking at elites, you're looking at people who live in the margins of society in these futuristic visions. That's what cyberpunk focuses on. And Neo is a character like that, as is Morpheus and some of the other figures in this film. What issues is the Matrix confronting? Well, realize that the internet, although it seems totally ubiquitous today, and it is totally ubiquitous today, this has only been around for about 30 years, at least in mainstream. The internet went live, so to speak, where people who were non-specialists could access it only in the mid-1990s, 1994 to be exact, although the internet had been developed as early as the mid-1960s and was pretty common in the 1980s, at least for those who had access to mainframe computers. These were linked up and they could kind of join together and access information across the burgeoning internet. It only became a popular thing in around 1994. This did lead to a lot of, we might say, concern about the possibilities of having that much information. What could people with that much access to power and information do potentially that was nefarious? And there were a number of films made in the mid to late 1990s about that very thing, about scenarios that showed, the misuse of the internet. And so, this was another manifestation of that, although this, I think, took it to a much greater extent than any film had done previous to that time, right? If the whole world is connected in this way, what does that mean for the world? What does that mean for reality? In fact, is this the reality, or are we living in some kind of simulated reality? That was an idea that had been developed previous to this time, but with the rise of the internet, with the growth of things like virtual reality, right, this became a concern and a potential scenario that was plausible. The growth of artificial intelligence and the fears about what that could entail. This goes back to kind of the golden age of science fiction in the 1950s and 60s with books like Isaac Asimov's I, Robot series, or films like Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, right? They explored AI gone bad or AI gone problematic in some way. The Matrix took that foundation and built upon it. There are also environmental concerns evinced in this film, right? That the humans and the AI machines have fought wars and have destroyed the environment of the earth in the process. And that humans live in these, kind of farms, human farms, where they are grown as embryos to become, full human being or fully grown human beings, to be harvested for the small amount of electricity and heat that actually humans produce a lot of heat, with the energy that the human body produces, that we have become batteries, right? That's, and, when Morpheus reveals to Neo after he swallows the red pill, what the world is really like, you get all of this. But one question that I think you have to consider here is, are these ideas really new? In fact, the prompt for the last paper asks you to do this, right? In what ways is this just a reframing of concerns that were evinced in the ancient world? Plato writes about the world as a cave where people are chained up, looking at what is essentially a virtual reality show, right? The shadows on the back wall of the cave. Well, is the Matrix just another kind of manifestation of this? Is this just an old story repackaged for a modern audience, right? What has stayed the same? What has changed? That's what I'm asking you to think about on the final paper prompt. Some key scenes, and I won't, open the film for fear of violating any kind of copyright agreements or whatever, okay? But if you watch the film, these will stand out. These should stand out to you. The whole montage, the whole sequence, it starts with Neo being taken, to meet Morpheus. Sorry for the yawn there. To meet Morpheus, shows him the red pill and the blue pill. If you take the blue pill, you wake up in your bed and you believe whatever you want to believe, he says to him. If you take the red pill, I will show you how far the rabbit hole goes. You stay in the Matrix and you see how far the rabbit hole goes. Neo takes the red pill, almost without hesitation, right? And then, once he kind of freaks out, Cypher comes to him and he says, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I take that blue pill, right? And that, of course, is kind of foreshadowing for what happens with Cypher later on. But we get this whole sequence that follows where Morpheus, shows him that humans are being harvested for energy, that we are just batteries for these machines, and that he has freed him from that, and that he and his crew on the ship called the Nebuchadnezzar are being hunted by machines who want to return them to that state, or destroy them as a threat, right? That there is a war for the very existence of humanity going on, and the humans are losing pretty badly in all of this. And that Neo is potentially the hope for giving humans the advantage, that he is the chosen one. This almost Christ-like, character, or messianic type character that Neo is an element of the film that may, I don't know if you agree with this, but especially if you watch the two immediate sequels to the film, I don't know that whole idea of the chosen one or the Messiah is terribly well developed, but it is an element of this. In my mind, some of the more interesting characters are the agents, right? Agent Smith, played by Hugo Weaving, this guy. You have, Agent Jones and Agent Jackson, I think is his name, or Brown. They choose these kind of really common, nondescript English names. But Agent Smith seems to be their leader, right? That these intelligences that exist in the Matrix as a kind of police force are better, more capable than anything humans can be, at least until Neo figures out how to manipulate the Matrix himself at the very end. And so, the agents are kind of key characters. When they first confront the agents, they get destroyed, right? They are no match. It's not until Neo is, able to kind of tap into powers that no other human has in the Matrix, that he kind of easily defeats him, right? Which sets up the other films that come later, arguably take the story in directions that were not terribly popular. The other films were not nearly as well received. The Oracle as a character is important, of course. Neo has been called the chosen one. Morpheus believes that. Trinity believes that. But the Oracle, maybe using psychology here, maybe just playing mind games, says to Neo, you're not the chosen one, right? Is she just manipulating him? Is he really the chosen one? These questions are not answered, I think, fully at any point other than, when Neo does things that no other human can. So that's, something to pay attention to, certainly in the story. I'm not sure that it's tied to any particular, concern other than, we might say, the idea of a Messiah or the chosen one is an ancient idea that continues into the Matrix. And, the undoing of a dystopic world has to be some kind of Messiah figure. That's the only plausible solution, perhaps. I think that a key thing is the character Cypher is very, very important, obviously. He's the one who betrays the Nebuchadnezzar and its crew, ends up killing most of them, right? As they lie helpless, they're, jacked into the Matrix, and they can do nothing about this. When he unplugs them without the preparation, they don't, they die, right? And so why does Cypher betray? Well, that's, I think, sort of obvious from, his dialogue in the film when he meets with the agents. He says, I don't want to remember anything. I want you to plug me back in, right? Ignorance is bliss. I know this stake is just a manipulation of the Matrix, but I don't care. I want to go back to just enjoying life and not worrying about what's real, right? And so, is this just a recasting again of what Plato talks about in the allegory of the cave, where when the philosopher, in this case we might say that's Morpheus or possibly Neo, when the philosopher goes back in and tries to unchain people, even those who may be unchained and discover reality, are they going to be happy with that? Right? Especially if the reality is not especially appealing, as it's not, right? And so, that I think is an interesting take on what is already an established idea. So, I think that you can use the Matrix as a text to think about these questions. It's not the only one. There certainly are ideas in Fahrenheit 451 and in The Handmaid's Tale that are recastings of ancient ideas, but the most obvious one of these is, that this is just a retelling of the cave allegory in a modern setting. So, all right, that's all that I have for you. If you have questions, if you need help with anything this week, finishing up the course, reach out. I am available to assist you in all of this.